Well, today's guest lost his father-in-law due to negligent doctors and a flawed hospital protocol just a few months before the COVID-19 outbreak. And when he accumulated the data behind the virus and saw thousands of patients dying because of the same medical lies and failures, it forced him out of early retirement and into the greater fight of his life. Here to share more of this story and the incredible work he's been doing now, let's welcome our friend, Dr. Bryan Ardis. Come on in, Dr. Ardis. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you.
Hey there. Good to see you.
It's great to see you, Joe.
All right.
You know, I love having fellow warriors from different spheres of the body of Christ. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
And the Lord is really kind of taking you out of what you were doing, saying, it's time to fight, son. And he prepared you like with this brilliant mind and this ability to research, because there's a lot of discipline in your book. There's a lot of discipline that goes, I've written many books. I know what it takes to do what you did here. So thank you for fighting for us. And really, I just want to say publicly, thank you for saving lives.
You're very welcome. And so is everyone around the world.
Because your partnership with Daystar was able to get those messages that are mostly censored to millions of people. And how many emails and phone calls did we get?
Oh, from all over.
Thanking doctors who said, I was on Joni's show, or I was on Mystery Now, and I saw a doctor, and I didn't take the shot, and you probably saved my life.
Well,
So
I've been interviewed dozens of doctors, all our friends, that Dr. Bartlett and Simone Gold and Pierre Corey, and I could go on and on. Peter McCullough. It was just a whole bunch of you guys and girls and gals that were saying something's not right here. Something's not right. When did you first kind of realize what was going on? Did it start with your father-in-law and what happened with him?
Yeah, when it comes to the medical profession, it wasn't just my father-in-law. I was questioning everything related to diagnoses, medical diagnoses, prognosis. Even with family members, when I was 21 years old, I always questioned, how come there's not more cures for conditions or diseases, and why do so many people have to suffer the rest of their lives with chronic illnesses? So I've always questioned the why, and always was fascinated with helping people recover from things they were told were permanent, genetic, and they could never live without. So this is a long-standing thing.
Anything is possible, like that song, like you were that guy.
Oh, what's so miraculous about the New Testament? It's all the miracle healings that everyone now gravitates to. It brings them to Christ. It brings them to the Lord in hope for their own salvation and their own freedom from the suffering that they're encountering in this life. And this is why I felt a spark, literally in May of 2020, when I read a document on the NIH's website that Anthony Fauci had put out, that there was one experimental drug that was only allowed to be used in hospitals around the country for COVID-19 hospitalized Americans. And only America was going to use it for the first year of COVID. And that drug was called Remdesivir. And when I read the studies that he actually claimed made the drug efficacious, he said, and safe to be used against Ebola and COVID-19, to read those studies and to understand he was flat out lying to the American people and to the world, that I felt an immediate spark from God, I believe, that my entire adult life in helping patients recover from their symptoms they've been diagnosed with and suffered from for 20 years in practice, I really do think that God led me to this path to feel like it was time to step away from practice to go now be ready to educate the world on what is the immune system he designed and put inside of us on day 6, which actually provides all those miracles you read about in the New Testament. And those miracles are still alive today. It's miraculous.
So talk a little bit, if you will, like the studies that were done on Remdesivir early on, and why that they pulled that drug up, knowing the side effects, knowing the people that had died from it, et cetera, the studies that showed that. How in the world could they again put it back in the marketplace to be used with COVID? Because again, most of us know if you put on a vent, to put them on Remdesivir and they would die, would shut down the kidneys, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because you taught me all of that. But what were the early studies on Remdesivir, and how in the world did it get put back, to use in the hospital?
Yeah, that was my problem. That's why I actually went into the media, and thank God for outfits like Daystar, who were committed to projecting truth and a platform where people could come confidently share things that were being censored around the world. And this was one of them. So Remdesivir was the drug named by Dr. Anthony Fauci in this NIH memo. And the two studies he quoted he said it was proven safe and effective against the Ebola virus in a study done for a year in Africa the year before COVID-19 in 2019. He said it was safe and effective against Ebola. Therefore, we're going to use it against COVID-19, this new virus. Then he said it was also found safe and effective against the COVID-19 virus in a short 3-month study from January to March of 2020. Both of these studies are right now on the New England Journal of Medicine's website. You can download them at pubmed.gov and read them. I decided the day I read this memo that they were proven safe and effective, I needed to read the studies because I'd never heard of this at the time, non-approved by the FDA drug. He called it an experimental drug, meaning it was not approved by the FDA to be safe and effective for anything. So I wanted to know what was he referencing in these studies. So the 2019 study, it was a year-long study with 4 drugs, all to treat Ebola in 4 different regions of Africa. Remdesivir at month 6 was pulled in that 1-year study by the Independent Safety Board. They pulled the drug from the trial, reported to the funders that Remdesivir had the highest mortality rate of all the drugs, and over 53% of the people they gave it to died, which is higher than the death rate of Ebola. It was the only drug that had a higher than 50% death rate and was pulled from the study along with another drug that had a 49% death rate, but Remdesivir was the worst. Then I found out reading the study that Dr. Anthony Fauci's department at the NIH funded that entire Ebola study. So he would have known the results a year earlier before in May of 2020, making the claim it was found safe and effective against Ebola.
And
So it was effective at killing people.
It was effective at killing more people than Ebola did.
And of course, one of the side effects that you talked about is that it was known for shutting down the kidneys, right?
Yes. So in the 3-month study that was done from January to March of 2020, this was the NIH giving the maker of Remdesivir a 3-month trial to test their own failed drug against Ebola on COVID-19 patients. At the end of their study, they published 30% of all people on that drug, Remdesivir, had acute kidney failure, renal failure, and up to 8% of all of them had to have kidney transplants in the first week of being given Remdesivir because it was so toxic, which led to the World Health Organization announcing in November of 2020, and it's in my book. I show you the document. World Health Organization made a press release for the entire world in November of 2020 and said no one hospitalized for COVID-19 in the entire world should be given Remdesivir.
And yet they continue to give it.
To this day. It is still being used in hospitals to this day. And don't be misled. They're not going to tell you the word Remdesivir anymore in the hospitals. Have you guys heard this? Now they've had secret meetings in the last 2 years. The administrators of hospitals are telling all their medical staff in the hospitals to not say the word Remdesivir anymore. Because when people hear it, they immediately say, I don't want it. I've heard about how dangerous it is. So now they say the brand name of the drug Remdesivir, and that brand name is Veklury. Don't forget it. If you hear the word Veklury or Remdesivir, this is proven to cause kidney failure.
How do you spell it?
It's spelled Veklury.
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 So if you hear that word, run.
If you hear Veklury or Remdesivir that runs with run, death is near,